In his commentary to the Torah, Rav Shimshon Furl Hirsch takes aim at Yitzchak and Rivka, and he blames them for the child that came out. He blames them for Esav. Rav Hirsch says that it was the poor educational skills, poor parenting skills, of Yitzchak and Rivka, which produced an Esav. And on the one hand, it's always convenient to have someone to blame. Blame the parents, blame the rabbi, blame the teachers. The reason why Rav Hirsch attacked them, if I'm correct, is because of a larger educational consideration which he had. Rav Hirsch in many ways was a maverick. He's somebody who introduced educational programs. He introduced them both for men and for women. And part of his educational philosophy was that we need different types of education for different types of children. Matter of fact, and I don't believe he quotes this directly, the rabbis tell us about an attitude which we can call a one-size-fits-all. We're told that was the attitude of a city which was called Sodom. That's the way they treated their guests. They had one bed which was one-size-fits-all. And if you were too tall, they would chop your legs off. If you were too short, they would stretch you a bit. And if we think about it, many schools do exactly that. They have one-size-fits-all, and children who are a little bit brighter will find themselves having their legs cut off, and children who can't quite cope with some of the others will find themselves being stretched. And as far as the educational point, Rav Hirsch seems to be absolutely correct. I think the only question is this an accurate way to describe the way that Yitzchak and Rivka raised their sons? If we take a look at it, I think that we can discern that if anything, the opposite is true. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all. One of the strange verses which we're told in this week's Parsha is we're told that Yitzchak loved Esav, kitzayid befiv, because of the food, because of the hunt which was in his mouth. That's something which is strange. First of all, a parent loves a child because they're their child. You don't need a reason to love the child. Over here, if we're correct, what the Torah is saying is that Esav was a hunter. We're told that. Yaakov was a man of the tents. When we look at these two types of categories, there's something amazing which emerges. The last person who describes the hunter was Nimrod. The last person who we see sitting in the tents and working from his tents was Avraham. The children of Avraham, or specifically the son and daughter-in-law of Avraham, Yitzchak and Rivka, have two children. One who reminds them of Nimrod, and one who reminds them of Avraham. And this should be a foregone conclusion that the favored son, the future, should in fact be Yaakov. And we're told, in fact, that Rivka loves Yaakov without any qualification. Of course, Rivka had some inside information because God told her that these two children will go in two different directions. These two children will be two different nations. Yitzchak, on the other hand, doesn't have this information. After all, how can Rivka tell her husband that one of your sons is just not going to make it? Instead, with compassion, she doesn't say anything. And Yitzchak looks at this son, he looks at Esav, and he loves him for his particular skills. Here is a kid who needs excitement. Here is a kid who needs the adrenaline rush. So Yitzchak goes and does something amazing. He loves him for this. He loves him for who he is. And many years later, when he invites him to bring him some food so he can give him a blessing, Yitzchak does something amazing. He tells Esav, go out to the field, go hunt, bring your tools, take your bow, take your arrow, and hunt for me some food. He turns Esav's hunting into a mitzvah, into a commandment. And he waits for Esav to come back. Of course, what he doesn't know is that Yaakov is the one who's going to be the future. And his dream of perhaps the two of them working together is not going to work. When Yaakov comes in, and it's interesting because he comes in because his mother commanded him to come in. Which means each of the parents gives a commandment to the child and turns that behavior into a mitzvah. Now, morally, we can have a difficulty. How in the world can Rivka tell Yaakov, go in and take that blessing? And that goes back to the inside information. When Yaakov goes in, he begins to speak about God. How'd you come so quickly? And God provided. He speaks with politeness. Father, please stand up. And these are the kinds of words we don't find with Esav. And as Yitzchak is there, he comes to this realization, which is a false realization. He thinks he's succeeded. He thinks he's tamed Esav. He thinks Esav now speaks about God. And he thinks that all of his investment in Esav has panned out. What he didn't realize was that Yaakov, who seemed so simple and so naive, had another side to him. At the end of the day, it's Yaakov who's going to be the one who surprises Yitzchak by developing another side, a side which shows that he'll know how to get around in the world, a side which shows that he's going to know how to deal with various adversaries down the line. That was something his mother had commanded him to do. So as far as Rav Hirsch's point, it seems to be in this case that Yitzchak and Rivka treated their sons differently. It wasn't one size fits all. But on the other hand, what we find is that Esav wasn't prepared, at least not at that point, to take these lessons, to take the dreams of his father and turn them into a reality. Instead, it was going to be up to Yaakov to now live a dual life, to live in a sense both the life of Yaakov and the life of Esav, and bring them together and create one whole personality.